The editor of the scene featured in this Sunday's Gospel clearly identifies the focus of the parable: those who trusted in themselves as being righteous and who scorned others. In the storyline of the Gospel written by the anonymous author we call Luke, this is unmistakably the Pharisees and lawyers. Luke chapter 18, verses 9 through 14. He also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a toll collector. The Pharisee, standing by himself, was praying thus: God, I am indebted to you that I am not like other people, thieves, rogues, adulterers, or even like this toll collector. I fast twice a week. I tithe all things, as many as I gain. But the toll collector, standing far off, would not even lift his eyes to sky vault, but was beating his breast and saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, the latter went home justified, not the former. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and the one who humbles himself will be exalted. Folks, if Christians know the Pharisees only from New Testament information, then they are badly informed and the impression given is erroneous. Precious little of the New Testament gives a fair report or interpretation of them. We recently produced a video presentation that talks about this, all about the Pharisees. To learn more about them, how they really were, I greatly encourage you to check it out. I will link it at the end of this presentation. The 2 times for public prayer each day for ancient Israelites were at the 3rd hour, 9 a.m., and the 9th hour, 3 p.m. In the parable, the Pharisees' prayer is self-focused, just like Mary's Magnificat was, and just like Simeon's Canticle was. But unlike those prayers, the Pharisees has an unmistakable elitist edge. Not like other people, especially that tax agent, that toll collector. This unmistakable elitist edge spells out in the details of his piety. The Pharisees' disclaimer, not rapacious, unrighteous, not an adulterer, is falsified if you read the entire storyline of the author we call Luke. Jesus, in the gospel called Luke, accuses the Pharisees of being full of rapacity, money lovers, and, implied by juxtaposition, adulterers. Now let's consider ancient Israelite fasting. Messianists, or followers of Jesus, please don't call them Christians, that would be anachronistic, and Judeans both fasted. The Judean tradition was more concerned with the public fast days, like, for example, the Day of Atonement. This Pharisee in this story boasts of going beyond the norm. Now consider ancient Israelite tithing. The basic idea of tithing in Deuteronomy evolved and was elaborated throughout history. Christians of all stripes should be very careful whenever someone in their churches speaks to them about the necessity of tithing, a favorite pastime for master manipulators, which, unfortunately, are abundant in today's churches. Tithing took a wide variety of forms in the biblical record, and believers and other people today should be very careful when discussing tithing to identify very specifically the historical period of the practice under discussion. The Pharisee sets himself apart, pointing out both his lack of sin and his non-obligatory works like fasting and tithing. In both, he went beyond the normal requirements of the law. The first century Pharisees distinguished themselves by observing a first tithe and a second tithe. That is a very high standard beyond the legal requirements. Now what about the tax agent or toll collector? The Greek word telones, most often translated as publican or tax collector, can describe 3 categories of people in the first century. 1. Those who purchased the right from government to collect specific taxes and tolls. 2. Supervisory officials, regional directors like Zacchaeus, a chief collector or agent, and archetelones. And 3. Employees or agents who collected indirect taxes through tolls at major transport and commercial centers like Jericho and Capernaum. Members of this third category of agents were employed by higher authorities. Hence, the Baptist urges that they collect no more than is appointed. Someone else has set the rates. While despised and avoided by the Pharisees, tax agents formed one of the groups that responded to the prophet John the Baptist and the prophet Jesus. The tax agent in this parable presents a humble contrast to the puffed-up Pharisee. He stands far off and adopts the customary posture for prayer, arms crossed over the chest and eyes cast downward. To strike the breast is a Middle Eastern gesture peculiar to women. Men use it there, but only in extreme anguish. We see it in this episode, and likely in Luke chapter 23, verse 48. The tax agent simply repeats, "God have mercy on me. I am a sinner." Remember, in the Bible, when somebody asks for mercy, what they're saying is, "Give me what you owe me. Fulfill your interpersonal obligation to me." So what this man is saying, this publican, this tax agent, is, "God, give me what you owe me, patron God. Fulfill your interpersonal obligation to me. I am a sinner. I am one who has shamed you." The Pharisee thought he had it all sewed up, but the tax agent was the one God justified. The Pharisee needed nothing, but the tax agent recognized he needed God. The final saying about exalting and humbling self is known as a floating saying. It appears here and in Luke chapter 14, verse 11, both stories aimed at criticizing the Pharisees. Other forms of this wisdom occur in Matthew, James, and 1 Peter. From the cultural perspective of honor and shame, the values that dominate every page of the Bible, one must always guard against making a hollow claim or a claim that can be easily dismissed. Remember the story about the Pharisees who invited Jesus to dinner just to humiliate him? Sitting in the wrong place is very risky. Sitting lower and then being invited higher is wiser. But the verb in this saying is in the theological passive voice, something quite common in the Bible. In passive voice constructions, the agent is not mentioned, but can be deduced from the context. Well, in the Bible, when no human agent is identified, then the agent is understood to be God. So whoever humbles himself will be exalted means whoever humbles self, God will exalt. And whoever exalts himself will be humiliated means whoever exalts himself, God will humiliate. In other words, this is another story about divine reversal. God's ways are not the ways humans think and plan. Most people go through life and tally successes and failures. Believers sometimes can discover in their so-called failures examples of divine reversals. A better plan. A more rewarding venture. What looks initially like a setback can be an opportunity for course correction in life.